Hi friends, strangers, internet. My name is EmilyHanhan. I love colorful makeup and colorful language. And I'm here today with a stack of 5 of my most recent palettes to give you some reviews on. Kind of inspired by Teresa is Dead and many other creators that do little review roundups, I thought I would go through and pull out the last 5 palettes that I've purchased or received in PR and give you some updated thoughts on them. So, if you're new here, if you like colorful makeup, if you like folks that have strong opinions in lots of different directions about makeup and commentary in life, and if you like cute fat babes in general, you should just go ahead and subscribe. And let's just get into talking about eyeshadow palettes and all of my thoughts about them. So I'm going in oldest to newest order based on how they came into my collection. I think I have it correctly ordered, but you know. So first up we have the Drench Cosmetics Jupiter Jungle palette. Now this was sent to me in PR and I am an affiliate with Drench Cosmetics. I will have my code on the screen if you so desire to check them out. I lovingly call this a basic bitch palette, again inspired from Teresa and any other people that use this term. This is a 12-pan palette that is mostly in the neutral color family with a pop of green. We have 6 mattes and 6 shimmers, which I like seeing. And I have been using this palette. I've been dipping back into it. I've been trying to put in the work to play with it, because if you're new around here, I'm not a neutral lover. But I wanted to show this some love because I do appreciate Drench. I'm an indie makeup lover in general. This palette, first of all, the way black, New World, is the most pigmented black, like one of the most pigmented. I can put it in my waterline. Just on a brush, just put it on a brush, dip it in my waterline, and I have a black waterline. I can do a wing. I built out the wing in this look with that. But you can also layer it and use it to create smoky eyes. The green jungle is a beautiful shade and blends out really nicely. Again, you can go deep, or you can. I mean, it's a deeper green. I was trying not to swatch because I will get everything everywhere. But you can see how that black sucks the light out of the room, and this green, I feel like I say this a lot, I don't like blue based greens, and I feel like jungle is just enough on the side where it's deepening, and it's green, but it doesn't veer into the blue based territory, which makes me very happy. And the other mattes definitely blend out beautifully. I do think that Quicksand, Placement, and GRS, the 3 warm tone mattes, are a little bit close in tone, but I think that they're different enough that you can use them in different ways. I think the shimmers are beautifully creamy. The Zone, which is this taupey antique gold, Flash, which is the icy pink, they are just some of the prettiest metallic shimmers. And I'm really enjoying this palette because it gives me cool toned options, particularly with the taupey shade, the black, the icy pink, and then you get a lot of warm tones as well. It does lean more warm tone than cool tone, but I think just having the taupey color to kind of pull in with the green or the black is really, really fun. I said this enough in a Get Ready With Me. The thing that I've been loving to see with Drench and a lot of indie brands is that every release gets better and better and better. And they keep pushing up the quality, and I think that this is a great example of that. I think if you are attracted to these kinds of tones, you really you can't go wrong with this palette. And I think that you get creamy metallics and nice mattes that build and blend and have a good depth to them. Okay, so that is the first palette. Now, Next up we have, this was given to me as a gift for my birthday. This is the Lethal Cosmetics Velvet Dusk palette. This is a palette. This is also a collection of single shadows. The palette is magnetized, so if you were looking at this and drawn to any particular colors, you don't have to buy the whole thing to get the colors. So when this palette was first revealed, they talked about trichromes, and Lethal was calling the purple and the coral trichromes. I don't particularly think that's accurate. I think that the purple on my eyes, more than in a swatch, gave me a great blue to purple shift, and the coral is one of those like warm golden red corally colors. But here's my thing. I think there was definitely some false advertising there that I'm not hugely a fan of, and I love Lethal. I'm kind of a Lethal. I try not to. I don't stand any brand, but Lethal, I'm on the edge. Now, I do like the improvement in the shimmers, and I think that the green, which I have on my lids today, is so much more impactful than their last green shimmer. And I do think that these that they're calling trichromes have a nice impact to them. Now, texturally, they're going to read a little thicker than some other shimmers out there, for better and for worse. I don't mind the texture if I get the shine and the color and the impact, and I feel like I get that with this palette. And then the other shimmers that are in here, I don't really reach for them as much. There's like a neutral brown and then a beigey shimmer. And they're pretty enough, but they're not, they're just like I was talking about, I'm not a neutral person. They're not my go-to shades. Now, the mattes, I do love the grungy color story happening in here. In particular, like for me, this as a 9 palette, I feel like is even stronger than as a 12 pan. But again, I don't reach for these kind of colors. But obviously this brown works well with the green or the yellow. But I do think that, and I feel like I can get like fun, grungy looks with this palette. Here are my thoughts in terms of like the colors. This wig hair is everywhere. If it bothers you as much as it's bothering me, welcome to the club. Lethal was veering into this world of duping themselves with some of the shades that they're releasing, and the only reason why I mention that, or the main reason I mention that, is that they sell single eyeshadows. So if you are a collector and you're like, oh, I definitely want this set of shadows, but you already have Petrichor or you already have one of the other dark purples, these aren't that unique from some of their other releases. Now, if you've been waiting for the right bundle of colors to pick up and you don't yet have a turquoise from Lethal or a grungy green or a warm yellow, this could be the right bundle because their bundle pricing is usually better than their single pricing. But that's my main kind of fear, is that they're kind of duping themselves in a way. But I do like, if you don't know me, I am a green and yellow queen. If you don't know me, I love greens and yellows, so seeing those in this palette was also super fun. And if you're new to Lethal mattes, because I didn't even describe them, I find them to be a little bit more on the powdery side, but I also find them to be very blendable and buildable. So even on first swipe of these colors, I was like, oh yeah, that doesn't look that impressive, but they build up and they can blend out and they can kind of merge together and all of that. So I do think that this was a really cool, like, grungy color story from them, and I think it's an interesting counterbalance to the After Dark collection that they released in the summer. But if you are a Lethal lover but you don't want too many duplicate shadows in your collection, I'm not sure how wholly unique this is, but I like the stepped up shimmer formulations for myself, and I like some of these tones. But like, okay, if I'm being honest, If I was going to buy these as singles and the price point was the same, I would probably only pick up these. Now, I haven't really worked with this dark tone, so I might really like having that in my collection, but it veers a little bit into the brown, more brown than I was hoping for. These are the three darkest tones, and you can see the brown is very brown, the purple is very purple, and that one is right in the middle. It just looks a little bit more brown than maybe I would want. But anyway, let me take a coffee break because I'm doing a rare thing and I'm filming before noon. But I added too much oat milk and a little too much sugar to my coffee, so it's kind of reminding me more of a milkshake than coffee. Mistakes have been made. So next up, I have another piece of PR. This is the Club Nebula palette from Kaleidos, and this is actually coming back into stock, I think in the next week or two. I think mid-April. This is a 15-pan palette. It was created in collaboration with Angelica Nyquist, a YouTuber here on this platform, a creator here on this platform. So this palette has 6 shimmers and 9 mattes. Here's what I'm gonna say. I felt some kind of way when the Melts Amor Eterno collection was released all the way back in 2019. I was tempted by it, but I was just like, I really only want like half the colors in each palette. And I'm not spending, it was like $110 for the 2 palettes, I think combined or whatever. I feel like this is giving me Melt Muerte vibes with the pop of the green and warm tones that I needed in my life. Because you have these deep blues, the deep green, the red, and then you have, like I said, the brighter green, the turquoise. I meant to mention that in my initial like video about this because it was a thought I had and I kept forgetting. So in that way, I am very happy to have received this as PR, and it's definitely something I would have considered buying. Obviously, it's hard to say like, yes, I would buy it because I got it for free. I'm going to be very realistic about like that. That's definitely something that I really appreciate about this. Now, here's what I'm going to say. If you like more of a foiled or metallic shimmer, I'm not sure if this would be the right purchase for you because the shimmers in here are really pretty, but I find them to be more of the topper style of shimmer. That's not a bad thing. So like actually today I used all 5 of the palettes on my eyes in some way. This bright turquoise on my inner corner, it's actually a turquoise matte from a different palette with Firefly layered over top of it. And it created this like glowing turquoise. So I'm not saying that they're not impactful shimmers, but I do think that if you're not used to having a base underneath them, and I just mean like a matte color or another foiled shimmer or something, it might be a little tricky, but I do think they're really pretty shimmers. Now, I did a whole video showing you like all kinds of shimmers in my collection that duped these out. So I do really like this palette. I'm very happy to have it in my collection. I appreciate Kaleidos for sending it my way. Absolutely. But I wanted to be realistic about like the way in which they perform versus other shimmers. You might actually be able to see. This is a Kaleidos shimmer, those are the shimmers, and that's also a shimmer. Versus the lethal ones, how obviously they have color and shine, definitely shine, but they just have a sheerness to them, yet not totally sheer. The mattes, very pigmented. I generally find them blendable, although I am still a little scared of the darker tones. And I'm not saying I'm scared in that I don't use them. I mean that like I tend to overwhelm my eyes whenever I dip into dark tones because I have such small eyes. So I'm not going to sit here and say they're completely blendable out to your skin tone because I feel like I don't have that experience. But as a whole, I think this is a really pretty palette. Now, I'm always like I'm trying to be kind of a voice of reason in that, like I said, I did a whole video showing indie dupes, as many as I could find, and dupes within the Kaleidos line. So if financially or for whatever reason it's not right for you to pick this up, or you're really just drawn to the shimmers, or you're really just drawn to one certain part of the color story, there are options out there for you, for sure. Overall, this is a very, very lovely palette. Now, I realize I have a lot of actually like blue, green, turquoise. I have a bit of repetition in this video because we're going on to the LA Girl main stage palette. This was a bit of a shocker in terms of just how good it is. So this is a $16 palette. It has 7 mattes and 9 shimmers. And the shimmers in here are next level. Like, I actively talk about how I don't find drugstore eyeshadows to be impressive. I don't find them worth spending my money on. This changes my mind. This is an outlier for me. I'm not going to say it changes my mind to go buy a bunch of other drugstore eyeshadow, but I will say some of these shimmers are incredibly flaky and loosely pressed. I had to repress the metallic green, and I added a bunch of alcohol in there when I was repressing, which is not something you can always do. And it still is performing beautifully. So it's like kind of proof as how like I don't know. It felt like it was proof of just like how loosely pressed it is. I would say if you're rough and tumble on your shadows and you don't want anything that might chunk up, that this palette might not be the one for you. But I'm high-key impressed by it. Not only are the shimmers really pretty and very, very shiny, but I find the mattes pretty easy to work with. I find that I just felt like doing that. I find that they are not the most spectacular mattes, but they're also not the worst that I've ever worked with. I generally find them blendable and buildable. I would say with this palette, if you are vehemently anti-dark shimmers, this is not going to be the palette for you, because like these two are shimmers, these two are shimmers. So some of the darkest tones in this palette are shimmers. If you're either open to pairing this one up with other palettes, or if you're like cool with playing around with darker shimmers instead of darker mattes, this is a really nice palette for $16. And again, packaging is very nice. Huge mirror. The quality of the mirror and the reminds me of the Tarte magnetic palettes. I'm not sure if I would consider this a travel palette though, even though I feel like it's a great mirror and it feels very sturdy because of how loose and flaky the shadows are. So that's a thing. And I did find that because the shimmers have that thicker, slightly flakier texture, that I did get some flaking kind of and falling down underneath my eyes on some days that I wore this. It didn't happen all the time, but it did happen. So I think if you have the smaller hooded eyes, or eyes where, yeah, really hooded eyes, you might deal with that. And so you may or may not want to get a palette with that kind of formula in there. Just something to consider. But like, surprise of the quarter, surprise of the first half of the year. Now, Genesis. Now, I've only had this is the palette I've had for the shortest amount of time. This is Midas and Drench, two indie brands collaborating. And I said this before. I feel like this is a creative collaboration and less about like, oh, this is Drench formula, this is Midas formula, blah 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 blah. Like I said before, I'm a Drench affiliate, but I did buy this. I've bought a bunch of stuff from Midas before. I generally have been very happy with everything I've picked up from Midas. Same with Drench. This palette is the best that the two brands have both released. Like, if only Drench released this, I would have been like, this is the best Drench palette. If only Midas had released this has been the best Midas palette. Together, this is both brands' best palette. The very first look I did with it, every shade I used, I was like in love. The standard, unbothered, daring, excellent are all super, super pretty. I think that the turquoise tones in here, loved and phenomenal. Very nice. My main thing, similarly with Jupiter Jungle, I do feel like these warm tones read kind of similar when you put them all together. Were the Millionaire and Educated. Is that right? Yes. So now they look different in your finger swatches, but I think as you play with them on the eyes, depending on what you pair them with, sometimes they can kind of mix together. Also because you have magical. So I kind of wish that one of those, one or two, had been changed out. But you know what? For like a warm tone, colorful palette, I do think it's a nice balance. Kind of what I said with Jupiter Jungle as well. Like, I'm not going to be reaching into this palette for me so much for like these warmer tones, but like 2/3 of the palette I feel like I'm going to be reaching for. These mattes are very pigmented, blendable. The shimmers are really pretty. I think that some of them read more unique and others read more of just like a traditional, beautiful, metallic kind of shade. Like Daring and the Standard to me are much more unique, whereas Unbothered, even though it's a beautiful blue, it's just like a metallic blue, or the turquoise in here is just, you know, a turquoise. But I feel like even though the Standard is just this like steely gray, it just reads something special. And sorry, my fingers are dirty. And Daring is this like blue brown, but it has a pinky base to it. And so it's a really beautiful one shadow look. It's also could veer more turquoise or more blue or more pink or more neutral, depending on what you pair it with. I think that if you like this color story, this is a really nice option. I feel like it's really funny because I was kind of feeling this before, but it's funny how like blue, green, turquoise with like some pinky purple, red, blue, green, turquoise, pinky, and some pinky purple, red, blue, green, turquoise. Like, we have like a bunch of cousins in the house, or even sisters. Like, they're not all twins, but I feel like we have a bunch of sisters in the house, and not those kind of sisters. No. Oh shit. I don't know if I can do this. Can I do this? Okay. We have some family. So I'm very entertained by that because I knew that there was some theming here, but I didn't realize just how strong. But I don't think that takes away from any one palette. I think that in general, my experience with all 5 of these is that, like, pick one that works for you budget wise, brand wise, whatever texture, and go with it. Depending on your price point, depending on their availability, depending on where you live, any one of these 5 palettes might be something that you might want to check out. Like I said, I've been very happy with all of them, to be honest, and they all have their own strengths and their own weaknesses, but we kind of have a full house in here. 5 palettes, 5 great brands, and a whole variety of options here. So let me know if you enjoyed this kind of video, if you enjoy these kinds of review roundups. If you have any questions about any of the palettes that I talked about today, any of the brands, anything like that, let me know. I love talking with y'all. I'll be in the comments checking out what you have to say, any questions you have, anything you want to share with me. And if you have any other questions about anything that's on my face or on my body, feel free to also leave that in a comment, because I am not the best at listing those in the description box. And by not the best, I mean I don't typically do that. But I'm happy to assist if you do have questions. This, by the way, this beautiful pink teddy bear magic is another comfy, and I have no regrets, and it's the only thing I ever want to wear ever again in my life, in particular this beautiful number. Now that I have rambled off into nonsense land, we're gonna call it done here. Thank you so much for spending a bit of your day with me. Thank you to my patrons and my YouTube members. I don't say that often enough. I'm sorry, but thank you for being here. If anybody is interested in checking out my membership, my Patreon, or any of my social medias, they will be in the description box. And don't forget, everyone, please take care of yourself better today than you did yesterday. That includes eating some food, drinking some water or other beverage of choice, taking a nap, whatever floats your boat. And hopefully I will see you again real soon. Bye, friends.